puts us at time. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our talk, ITSM, Do Less Work, the thing we're all aspiring to do. I'm Richard Jones, I'm a senior consultant with Automation Consultants. You'll be starting with me today, and in a little while, I'll hand over to my colleague, Seve, who's here with me.
Yeah, hi, I'm Seve, I'm an operations engineer. Welcome to our talk.
For now, I think I'd like to get started by discussing something that's perhaps obvious, but perhaps isn't. Why do we really need efficient ITSM? And to give a bit of context here, let's start with a quote. It's a quote you may have seen before. Every company is now a software company. And that's from Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft. But I think it's worth following that up with another quote. Even if they weren't a software company, they'd probably be using computers. And that was me just now. You can quote that one if you'd like. More than ever, we are massively dependent on our IT systems, particularly over the last 2 years. I think there's a lot of things we would have done face-to-face, shoulder tap, whatever, in the before times that now we need our computers to do for us, or at least with us. And if we're dependent on our IT systems, we're dependent on our IT service management. We need to get it right. We can't afford not to. And I think the easiest way to start getting this right is to make your tooling work for you. Your modern ITSM platforms, like Jira Service Management, perhaps it's no surprise that at JiraCon we're focusing on Jira here, have a huge number of powerful features built in out of the box. And you really ought to be looking to leverage everything you've got at your disposal to make your life easier. So use the asset management functionality that comes with Insight to keep track of computers, services, people, everything you've got. Use those inbuilt change management processes to make sure you're making effective and correct changes at the right time, understanding why and keeping those records. Look at your incident management strategies, and Seve will be talking more to that later, but obviously it's massively important. Build a powerful portal for your service desk customers, integrate it with the Confluence knowledge base so that they can see immediately the information they need. Any ticket that's deflected that you're not having to work is a win. And of course, use automation. We're automation consultants. Perhaps it's no surprise we're focusing on this, but obviously it's just a massively powerful tool. And the first thing I think we need to ask is, why should we automate? And I think we can kind of look at 3 key areas where we're going to see benefits with automation: in performance, in process, and in people. That's the 3 Ps. You heard it here first. We're going to talk a little bit about each of these areas and what it means to improve performance and how we can achieve it with automation. So we'll start with the easy one, the obvious one, performance. An automated process is going to help us deliver a faster, more responsive service because we're not constantly having to manually action things. We can start resolving our customers' requests rapidly, decreasing their waiting time and making everything smoother. We can also improve our quality and reliability through automation. People are prone to mistakes. Computers, not so prone to mistakes, as long as the people that programmed them got them right in the first place. And even then, fixing bugs is often a lot easier than changing habits. Then we can look at process. How can automation improve our underlying processes? Well, if nothing else, when you go to automate something, you are forced to look at it in a greater detail than you might have done when you were just following it. You really take time to understand and examine that process. And with that, you might start identifying opportunities to cut bloat and streamline those operations. Where can you maybe skip a step you did before because it's not actually adding any value? An automated process is fundamentally more transparent because it's happening the same set of steps every time, and you can communicate that. So you can increase transparency and prevent misunderstandings because everyone's just letting it happen. And it also gives you opportunities that you can explore for optimization. You can start linking it up with monitoring. You can start closing feedback loops with people or with other tooling. You're maintaining that consistency and you're building that record keeping, which would be tedious to do by hand, but with automated tooling is very straightforward. It happens out of the box. And the final area we improve, and I think the least obvious, is people. How does automating our processes help our people? Well, obviously, it keeps your customers happy. Their requests are getting answered faster. It's all happening. It's nice and smooth. But it also helps keep your support teams happy. I think this is less obvious, but it's definitely there. They get an opportunity to develop deeper skills. They're learning to do these automation processes. They're playing around with code rather than just going through user interfaces and clicking the same boxes every day. People enjoy that kind of personal development, and it helps retain those really powerful staff. and improve the quality of your team and the skills available in it. You'll start getting opportunities to work with other teams and breaking down silos. If you want to automate a process that plays with that tool that's owned by that other team, you're going to have to talk to them. You're going to have to make friends and start bringing the organization together. And perhaps more than anything, automation is just more fun. I know I would rather be writing code than clicking through Jira's user interfaces. If your people are happy, they're going to stick around, they're going to be more engaged, and you're going to get more out of them. So bearing in mind those three areas, when should we look to automate? We'll work through those areas and see when each of them might drive us to try and automate something. So for the sake of performance, maybe look to automate those processes that are taking up a lot of your time or your service desk's time at the moment. Consider the return on investment that you'd get from automating it. Do you currently spend 4 hours a week doing this certain process? How long do you think it would take you to automate? Would you start saving time over a month? Suddenly that's 16 hours, 2 days, or a year. Suddenly that's 24 days. Do you think it'll take you 24 days to automate it? Or are you going to start seeing those real-time savings? Are there areas where your users are really having to wait, or they feel that they have a very poor experience that might be improved? And is there an area where mistakes are common? Again, people make mistakes, computers tend not to. So maybe we want to find that area where things keep going wrong and try and automate that one to get it polished. Where can we look to automate to improve our processes? Well, which requests do your agents or your customers really find frustrating? Where do you think there might be some room for streamlining, for optimization, to get that polished that examining the processes might leverage? Are there processes that could be improved by integrating them automatically with other systems and getting extra value out there, where a person may not want to click through 4 different tools, but a computer really doesn't mind? And which processes probably needed attention anyway? If you knew that particular process was about due for a redesign, why not redesign it with automation in mind and kill 2 birds with 1 stone? And finally, for people, what do you really hate doing? Because if there's something you really hate doing, it's probably a good fit to automate. And further, what would be interesting to automate? Do you really love writing Python and you think you could do a great Python automation solution for that process? Tackle that one. Are there other teams that might be willing to help out or even want to? If you're integrating with other teams' platforms, they're going to want to provide help so that they can make sure it works with them and how they work. They may even be willing to do some of the heavy lifting for you to get things working. And again, you're building those relationships. And what skills are you trying to develop within your team? Are you seeing loads of Terraform stuff starting to pop up and you want to get yourselves on board with that? Well, maybe look for a process that might require some Terraform to automate. Maybe it's deploying cloud resources. You can find the areas that will develop you in the ways you want to be developed and make sure you're focusing in on them. So with that, we're going to go through a demo, creating a Jira project. I'm sure if any of you work as service desk agents in large organizations and you do Jira admin, you probably see this one quite a lot. Maybe not the most tedious manual process, but maybe not super polished either. So we're going to see how we can automate the process based on a few simple project templates. How can you get those created automatically? Okay, so we want to automate the process. Apologies. PowerPoint is not always the most elegant solution. Process of Jira project creation when a request comes in from our service desk. And we can do that with a relatively small number of moving parts. If we have a look at the workflow I've got associated with this issue type, you'll see we've got a create project transition, the screen and a post function on it. And that's a relatively straightforward script runner Groovy post function. It's only 40 lines of code, the most important bit of which is of course sending that REST request to create the project. The rest's just pulling in the relevant info. And we've also got a simple automation rule in here to add a comment to our issue once our project's been created. So if we have a look at how that might flow through the portal for our customer, they're going to come in, they're going to navigate and find the request type they're looking for. You all know the drill. You'll see we've provided a link through to Confluence where we might provide some guidance on the kinds of project they can create or what they might need to do after they've got it. In this case, let's raise this on behalf of David Castro, and he needs a new Jira project. Apologies for my loud keyboard. You can see we're being suggested articles, which aren't working brilliantly because this is just a dummy site, but obviously as users use it more, that's going to start getting more valuable. We've got a space for them to provide a description to let us know exactly what they want so we can check that their decisions are sensible. And they're going to create the JiraCon demo project with a key of JDP because that seems sensible. We're asking them to make sure that they're not already in use. In practice, they might not want to do that or they might not know how. So we might need to check that. And they're going to make a Scrum project. So they can hit send, and that ticket's obviously going to come through to our queue. So if we click through, we can see that the issue has landed. We can see the choices they've made and check their information. So we've picked this up. It's in progress. At this point, normally I might now be going through and creating that project. But in this case, everything he's asked for seems sensible. So I'm just going to go ahead and create this project. Check that the information's correct. Hit create project. Let it do its thing. And hopefully within a couple of moments, you'll see that our project has been created and is available here. And if we click through to that, we'll see that we have indeed got the JiraCon demo project been created. And we're all good to go. Brilliant. Well, thank you to that disembodied voice. Has an excellent speaking voice, I might add. What we can see there is that, yeah, that probably might save us some time. Might not save us time initially, but the more times we do it, the more projects we have to create, that's going to start adding up. And it's a really nice way to scale that. But what about something a little bit more complicated? What if instead of a Jira project, they want some sort of AWS resource, an EC2 instance? Can we do that in a similar way? Let's have a look and find out. Okay, so a slightly more involved example now, although I think you'll see that it's still relatively straightforward. We want to automatically create EC2 instances, or maybe some other kind of AWS infrastructure. So again, got a pretty similar workflow, this time with some approvals, because these are going to have costs associated. But we want to create instance, and again, a screen and a post function. And in this case, the post function is updating the issue after the fact with some details about the EC2 instance that's created. But it's creating the instance by calling out to this function URL, and that's going to trigger this Lambda function in AWS because I didn't really want to write this code in Groovy. The authentication was proving challenging. Let's put it somewhere it makes the most sense. Once that instance is created, we've also then got a simple automation rule to take the information about that instance, put it in an insight object, and link it back to the issue. Could this be in the same Groovy script? Maybe, but it's a toolkit. We want to explore it and find what's going to be the most elegant and straightforward solution. And just to prove that this is working ahead of time, you will see I currently have no EC2 instances invoked. So we're going to head into our portal and someone is going to request an EC2 instance. This time, let's be Jerry Cottingham. They need an EC2 instance. They need it for doing work on. Brilliant, and they can choose what kind of EC2 instance they work. They're going to go T2 micro because I had to test this quite a few times. So they're going to send that request, and as per usual, it's going to make its way to our backlog. We might have SLAs, all that sort of thing, but let's keep it simple for now. We can have a look, and indeed it's waiting for approval. Now in practice, who might want to approve this? Might be their line manager, might be whoever owns those cloud resources, might be whoever's going to pay for that one. We might want the user to provide it, we might want to automate it in. But in this case, I'm just going to add it as myself because it's just me here. So there I am. We've got an approval needed to proceed. Let me just refresh this. And I'm going to approve this. So again, now we move forward to waiting for support. We can talk to our customer, check the details. When we're ready, move this to in progress. Keep the customer in the loop. Sanity check with whoever we need to, make sure it's all looking healthy. And then when we're ready, we're going to create an instance. Create instance, T2 micro. Let's just give this a moment then to go through the steps. So it needs to call out to some services. But once we're happy, if I refresh this with a little bit of luck, and there's no luck, it's a very carefully processed thing, you'll see we've now got some details fleshed out here. We've got an instance ID, a private IP, and indeed, it hasn't managed to link it to the instance. Give that a second, it might just be taking a moment. There we go. Extra step, automation rule had to run. But indeed, we can see that we have an insight object that's been created with our instance ID and image ID. The instance type belongs to Jerry Cottingham, and we can see the time and date that it was launched. And again, if I go through to EC2 now and refresh, you'll see that that has in fact been created. And let's just quickly sanity check E1BF. E1BF. We've created that instance and linked it all together. Fantastic. Thanks again, Disembodied Voice. And it's nice to know that even disembodied voices occasionally make little mistakes in their live demos. So how do we get started with automation? Well, I think the main thing to say, just do it. You can't improve on nothing. If you've got nothing automated right now, start picking some things to automate. And don't be afraid of partial automation. If you have a script that does something, but you're not sure how to get it running automatically, just run it yourself. Pressing click and the play button in your IDE is still better than going through those UIs. Pick some easy wins, establish a baseline. Don't start with the hardest thing, but think about what might be easy or what might add value. Look at those ways of choosing what to automate we considered earlier and get started. And don't be afraid to give people the time and resources to just try things out. You'll be amazed what people put together once they start exploring. Even in doing this, I learned some new things. I was all ready to put that Lambda function behind an API gateway. AWS said, hey, have you considered a function URL? And that's a new tool that I was able to add to my toolkit simply by trying to automate something. And then once you've started, how do you keep growing and progressing your automation pack? Well, don't be afraid to revisit your existing solutions. Be ready to accept feedback, iterate on them and polish. Looking at the demos we went through just there, maybe for project creation, I also want to be able to create a Confluence space. Maybe I want to capture any additional requests they added in their description and push them out to a new ticket with slightly lower priority for those kind of really niche customizations. Maybe I want to automate those approvals in the EC2 case. I could load my user management information into Insight, use that to pull through someone's line manager and automatically assign them as an approver. It gets better and better. You want to make sure things are scalable, particularly with Jira Cloud. You're going to find limits on script runner executions, automation rule executions. Even, Jira Cloud itself has API limits. So you want to make sure that as things grow, that's still going to work. And shifting some of the heavy lifting out to the scripts in AWS, like I did just there, is a great way to get around that, because then you've got access to the unlimited resources available. And consider improving your processes, the processes around automating these processes. If it's a Lambda function, then that means it's a block of Python code, which means I can put it in a repository alongside some other ones, and I can add some unit testing in. I've then got version control, and I can even automate my automation in terms of deployment. I can get some Terraform in for the infrastructure. I can quickly spin it up to a staging instance, test it out, make sure it works, and then push it to prod. And suddenly what we've got is a really slick, efficient, well-managed DevOps type platform that can really make things look just that little bit nicer. But I'm a consultant. I'm very optimistic. I think computers can make everything better for you. Others might disagree, and at times things are going to go wrong. So to talk about what happens when things start to go wrong, I'm going to pass over to my colleague in managed services, Seve.
Great. Thanks, Richard. So yeah, I'm going to be discussing how incident management is defined by ITIL, some of the best practices and practical steps for how you can build better incident management processes. And then we'll take a look at how Atlassian's tools can enhance your incident management and help you to respond to incidents more quickly and effectively through automation. So as Richard said, sometimes things go wrong, and that's okay. Incidents are an inevitable part of producing and managing IT systems and projects. To be a successful business, you don't need to completely eliminate incidents, but you do need to be able to deal with them effectively. So before we go any further, what is an incident? ITIL defines an incident as an unplanned interruption to a service or reduction in the quality of a service. This includes everything from issues that affect one user up to issues that affect everyone that uses or is impacted by a service. And what's the purpose of incident management? As defined by ITIL, the purpose of incident management is to minimize the negative impact of incidents by restoring normal service operation as quickly as possible. So when teams are faced with an incident, they need a plan that helps them to recover quickly, communicate clearly to customers and stakeholders, and collaborate effectively to solve the issue faster as a team. Effective incident management will help you gain the confidence of your customers and will allow you to spend more time on developing and growing your business rather than fighting fires. Incident management is at its heart a process driven by people. Any automation and tooling should support those people, not try to replace them. So to stay people focused, we need to assign roles to response teams and make sure there is accountability. This means we focus on getting the right people involved right from the outset. We need to make communication simple and accessible. This allows a faster and more effective response to an incident. And we need to ensure that teams are familiar with the process before an incident occurs. If teams don't understand their roles or how to use the incident management tools, the incident response will be slowed down and may cause frustration within the team. So what does this process look like? ITIL-4 has actually moved away a little bit from the focus of prescribed process for incident management in ITIL-3 to 34 practices, which give you a little bit more freedom to design and establish a process that works best for your organization. I'll be touching on those practices, but I will be using the ITIL-3 process of incident management as a template. So let's move on and explore a few of these vital elements of the incident management process. Firstly, logging. Every incident should be logged and recorded in a suitable tool. A suitable tool will allow you to log all the information relevant to the incident. An incident can come from anywhere, whether it's an employee, a customer, or a monitoring system. The first two steps are the same. Someone identifies an incident and then someone logs it. These incident logs typically include the name of the person reporting the incident, the date or the time of the incident, a description, and a unique identification number assigned to the incident for tracking. Secondly, we need to classify the incident. Correct classification is key in helping us to direct the incident to the correct support area, as diagnosis and resolution of incidents can involve many different groups within our organization and sometimes outside of our organization. So by classifying an incident, the logging tool you are using may also provide links to related configuration items, known errors, and other knowledge to enable quick and efficient diagnosis and recovery from incidents. Classification also helps you to analyze your data for trends and patterns, which is a critical part of effective problem management and preventing future incidents. The next step is to prioritize. So we've got to start by assessing its impact on the business. What are the number of people who will be impacted? Does this affect a high number of customers? Is it impacting an internal or an external system? Are there any applicable SLAs? Do we need to raise or lower the priority based on the timescales agreed with our customers? Are there potential financial security, compliance implications of the incident? How does the incident compare to other open incidents? Do we have lots of incidents open already? Are there other incidents we need to resolve before this one? And when it comes to defining an incident as a major incident, that may look very different from one business to the next. So to ensure that incidents with the highest business impact are resolved first, it's important to agree how incidents are classified. So at this point, we can begin to formulate our response. The cause of the incidents must be diagnosed. Ideally, your frontline support team will be able to see an incident through from diagnosis to close, but if they can't, the next step is to log all the essential information and escalate to the next tier team. The next team takes the log data and continues with the diagnosis process. As I said before, incident management is driven by people. So during our response process, communication is critical, both internally between teams and externally to customers and stakeholders. And if it hasn't got through to you yet, communicate. Collaboration is key. A lot of incidents can't be resolved by one person alone, so techniques such as swarming can be used to help manage incidents by bringing everyone together to help manage the incidents. Dedicated comms channels can be set up from the outset of the incident, be it a physical war room, video call, or text chat. It's also really important to keep any stakeholders who are affected by the service in the loop. It should be simple for them to be able to see the progress as the response teams work on resolving the incidents. Finally, once the team has arrived at a diagnosis, they will be able to perform the necessary steps to resolve the incidents and restore the service to normal operation. The incident should be reviewed with a post-mortem, and if the incident was escalated, it is finally passed back to the service desk to be closed. So how can we use the Atlassian suite to automate aspects of this process? Much like service management, this is different for each business and situation, but at the heart of it, automation should be focused on communication and collaboration by bringing your teams together in your response and notifying customers and stakeholders without taking up time that could be spent investigating. And most importantly, keep it simple. In a crisis, incident management tools and automation should be easy to use and shouldn't get in the way. Incident management isn't done just with one tool, but the right blend of tools, practices, and people. And in a moment, I'm going to be giving a short demo, and I'll be using a few Atlassian products to automate the incident management process. There's a few tools we'll need. So for effective incident management, we'll need a monitoring tool that will provide alerts of any deviations from normal operation. We'll need a place to log and track incidents, a customer portal to collect reports of issues from customers, and incident communication channels to allow for a unified response and to communicate with our customers and stakeholders. So in the demo, I'll be using Opsgenie for alerting and tracking incidents, Jira Service Management for our customer portal and service desk, and finally, status page to display the status of the affected services to stakeholders and customers. So let's get on with the demo.
So here we are in Opsgenie. If you're unfamiliar with Opsgenie, it is an alert aggregation and incident management tool that is designed to help ops teams deal with incidents and monitor distributed systems. I have the alerts page open, and you can see we have alerts here, but I'll show you some of the configuration first before we come back to this. So within Opsgenie, I have a team configured. Here you can see your rules and escalation policies, which determine who the alerts go to when there is an incident. Opsgenie also allows you to set up on-call schedules to ensure that a member of your team is always on call. There's also a really great mobile app for Opsgenie that can send notifications or even call you when an incident occurs, which is very useful for managing incidents outside of the working day. Within this team, I've set up a couple of integrations. The main integration we're going to focus on here is this integration to AWS CloudWatch. If you're unfamiliar with CloudWatch, it is simply an AWS monitoring tool, which in this case is being used to monitor whether a web application is online. Since this is integrated with Opsgenie, when the web application goes offline, it will notify Opsgenie, which in turn creates an alert for the team or whoever is on call. I also have an integration with our Jira Service Desk, which I'll come on to a little later. Here we have our services page, where we can see this web app service configured. Services in Opsgenie allow you to build a catalog that a team supports and allows you to build relationships between services within an organization. If I open up this web app front-end service, you can see that we have a relationship configured here, showing that the web app is dependent on a database service. So if one service goes down that another is dependent on, we don't need to create a new alert. You can also define stakeholders for each service. Stakeholders are users within Opsgenie who do not take up a license like responders, but have the ability to view the list of services and receive notifications when a service goes down. You can add as many stakeholders as you would like, and it's really useful for letting people know internally about the latest updates with your service. As a team, you can also subscribe to services. For example, if your team is managing a service that is dependent on a service belonging to another team, you will need to know any updates regarding the status of that service. While we're here, it's outside of the scope of today's demonstration, but we also have the Actions feature. This allows you to create more technical automations. For example, you might have a script that will restart a service when a specific alert comes in. I'm now going to quickly show you the service status view. This is the view that stakeholders will see when they come to look at services. We can see the incident status, but currently there are no open incidents for this service. We can also report problems from here. This is not a problem in an ITIL sense, but rather allows a user to highlight some kind of issue with the service, which will then create an alert in Opsgenie. So I'll just create an example problem here. And set the severity. So here we can see the problem I've just created. And if we go back to our alerts, we can see the alert from the problem I've just created. We can also see our initial alert from our integration with AWS CloudWatch. I also have an alert here which has come from a customer on our Jira Service Desk. As I mentioned earlier, Opsgenie is also linked to our Service Desk project in Jira. When a customer creates a relevant ticket, it will create an alert in Opsgenie. This will help us to pick up incidents that either our monitoring tool missed, or maybe even quicker than our monitoring tool is able to identify the incident. The alert from CloudWatch has a P1 priority. This is automatically set by the integration, but you can configure this within Opsgenie to show a preferred default priority for each alarm type that comes in. Beside each alert, we can also see this little ×1. This is a really great feature of Opsgenie. It provides deduplication of alerts. Some monitoring tools can send out lots of separate notifications for the same incidents. Instead of creating lots of separate alerts, Opsgenie will simply show the number of times that an alert has been triggered. So once the responder has seen the alerts and confirmed that an incident is taking place, the first thing to do is acknowledge the alerts. So I'll select them all, hit acknowledge. You can see they're all active here on the right-hand side. This signifies to the system that the responder is taking action and no further escalation is necessary. Next, I'm going to create an incident from these alerts. So I select them all and hit Create Incident. You see it gives you a form to fill out with additional information about the incident. When creating an incident, we can actually select a template, which we can pre-create. This is useful since we might require different information for different types of incidents, or maybe we want some of these fields to be filled out beforehand to save us from entering in the same information every time this incident occurs. So as you can see, I have some fields filled out already, and some prompts from some additional information here in the incident summary. The impacted service is automatically selected. It's also possible to automate all of this, such that when we receive a specific alert, Opsgenie will automatically create an associated incident. If I hit Next here, you can add responders, and I can also add additional teams that I want to join the response to the incident who will get their own alerts. So, for example, here I can add Richard as an additional responder. Hit Create. If I go to our Incidents tab, now we can see our newly created incident. So at this point, we've achieved the first 3 steps of our process. We've logged the incident in Opsgenie with all the relevant information. We've classified the incident by identifying the service, what the incident is, and we've directed it to the relevant team. And finally, we've prioritized the incident here with our P1. So now we need to make sure that we are communicating with our customers and stakeholders. Before we continue with our response to the incident, I'm going to show you what we have going on in Status page and our Jira Service Desk. So if I take you to our Status page, this shows the status of our services to our customers. As you can see, we're currently looking at a partial system outage. Our web service here is showing a major outage. If I take you to the configuration here, we can see the components that I have configured. The demo website is the component we're interested in here. As you can see, it's showing offline. Status page integrates with a few different monitoring services, such as Pingdom and New Relic, and these will automatically update your component status. However, you can also update with any unsupported monitoring tools using an email address that is supplied here. So currently for this service, when the application goes offline, the AWS monitoring tool sends an email here and the status is displayed in the status page. You can also do this manually by sending an email to that address with the keyword down in the subject line. Another benefit of status page is that this is linked to our Jira Service Desk. So if I take you to our Service Desk portal, if I refresh it, as you can see, even though we haven't had a chance to respond to any customers yet, our Service Desk is already displaying that there is an issue with the service. So next, we may want to create an incident within status page itself. Again, templates help us out here. So I'm going to create an incident with the service outage template. This has a message to convey the latest information regarding the incident on the status page. So if I hit create, we can go to the status page. If I hit refresh here, we can see that the status page has been updated with this information. Now, if I go to our Jira project for the service desk, we can use this service desk to manage our communication with our customers as part of our incident response. If a user spots that a service is down before the response team has been able to communicate their awareness to the customers, or perhaps even before the response team has received the alert in OpsGenie, a service desk customer might raise a ticket on the service desk. So we can see that's happened here. We have a ticket raised by a customer signaling that the web page is offline. As you may recall, we've already seen this as an alert in OpsGenie due to our integration between Jira and OpsGenie. This integration can go both ways. I've also created an automation such that any alerts created in OpsGenie also create an incident ticket on our service desk. So here you can see this ticket was created signaling that the website is down, and that was created by OpsGenie. So if I open up that ticket, I can go down here and set it as a major incident. And if I go back to the customer ticket, I can link that ticket to our major incident ticket. So now our service desk agents can see the progress of the related incident from each customer ticket. And I can also link to the alert in OpsGenie. So I can see when they've been acknowledged or closed there. And now going back to the incidents page in OpsGenie, you can see that we can also link Jira Service Desk tickets that have been raised related to the incident down here. This is a really beneficial integration as it allows our service desk agents to link any tickets that come into the ongoing incident so that they can be notified when that incident is resolved. So I'll just link our customer ticket here for now. We can also see from this page which services are impacted and a timeline of the incident. I can add entries manually to this timeline so that responders can see the progress of the investigation. So now that our service desk agents and our customers are up to speed, we're ready to begin investigating the incident. And to do that, we'll need a communication channel. So we can use the OpsGenie Incident Command Center. Here we can create a room. Any responders can join here. So we have voice and video chat, or we have a text chat. We can also invite other users that we might need to call into the room. So you can really quickly get everyone involved into the same session to tackle the incident. You can assign people roles. So I'll assign myself as the incident commander. So when you have lots of people entering the session, they can immediately see who's who, who's in charge, and which team people are coming from. Now, if I go back to the incident screen, once everything has been resolved and our service is back online, I can resolve the incident. And once that is resolved, we can create a post-mortem up here, which will create for you a draft report based on all the initial incident information, the timeline, and the command center sessions. So now if I go back to our status page, I can mark that as resolved and operational, and update. If I refresh the status page here, that reflects, and we can see all our services are back to being operational. Finally, our service desk will show our service has been restored. And when our service desk agents go back to the customer tickets, they'll be able to see that the major incident has been resolved in Opsgenie. So they can mark this ticket as completed to communicate to the customer that the incident has been resolved.
Fantastic.
So here we are in.
So that doesn't have that disembodied voice go around again. That one perhaps even more charismatic than the first disembodied voice. Right, we've got a few minutes left now for any questions. Maybe a little tight on time, but if there's any immediate questions, you're more than welcome to pop down. Do we have any questions? And am I still coming through? Because Zoom just told me it crashed. No questions coming through? Okay. Anything at all? Otherwise, as I say, if you want to come and have a chat to us, we will be at the booth. Anyone wants to steal my code, they're more than welcome to it. It's not brilliant. In that case, if nothing's coming through immediately, I will highlight that if you want some further assistance or to talk more about us, you're welcome to head to our website and get yourself lined up with a free 30-minute consultation. We'd be happy to discuss any number of different areas. We work on a pretty broad spectrum. So if that's ITSM work like today, we also work with cloud, scaled agile, cloud migrations for the Atlassian tooling. We can help you with Atlassian health checks, best practice consultancy, DevOps, AWS, all manner of things. We'd love to chat to you. And with that, then, I think just remains to say thank you very much for being a part of the talk. As I said, any questions, feel free to pop by and find us, get in touch, and enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.